r/AskReddit by Reddit and chill. What black market did kids at your school run? When I was in the 6th grade, I sold candy in between classes at marked up rates. A student decided to snitch. That put an end to all candy sales. As things cooled down, I decided to sell something more lucrative. I started selling condoms. I also looked at it as a way of contributing back to society. Students were practicing safe sex. I was able to use the money to pay for an assistant to help expand my business. The market was booming until local school authorities caught on and closed down my operation. Today I learned the school system hates the free market. Classic example of big business legislating small business out of the market. You could even say it was a textbook example. I would buy protein in large containers and sell half a scoop for $10 to kids that wanted to get in shape. If it's any constellation, I had good intentions, but my clients would not work out and just expect the protein to make them fit. I felt like an entrepreneur at that moment as I made $800. Not labeled for individual sale. Come on bro. You gonna report me? FBI. Hands in the air now. These little game coupons that our teacher gave out for winning class quiz games. Right when people were starting to get scanners, printers in their own home, some kid made copies of his coupons and sold or traded them to other students. Edit. Since I have some people asking what the coupons could be traded for, it was usually a piece of candy or a pencil with a fun print or something similar. I think the kids ended up getting caught like 2 weeks into the scheme. Edit 2. A lot of people are comparing this to Diary of a Wimpy Kid, which I've heard of but never read before. I think kids are just clever and do this kind of thing on their own because a lot of people in the replies had similar things happen in their own schools as well. I don't know if this is where the kid got his idea or not, but this may have been before those books came out. And that's how you first learned about inflation. In a similar vein, our high school had homework passes redeemable across all classes. You could use them as either one free pass for a homework assignment or 1 day delay on a large report. They even had a void message if copied. The teachers got them from the principal at the beginning of each quarter and they passed them out with wild abandon to anyone showing interest in class. The market was flooded. I'd buy them from kids for $2 each. Then I'd wait. At the end of the quarter, larger reports would be due. Rich kids would buy them back from me for $25 to $50 each. I once made $370 in the last 5 days of the quarter. Whatever I earned, I'd typically only use a total of $15.20 to buy the next wave of homework passes. The rest was mine to keep. It all started with a single 0.75 investment, and that was the only bit of money I ever paid from my own pocket to keep it going. And a new business major was born. The only guy in the school whose family had proper TV channels used to tape wrestling events and rent them out. That late 90s ECW was hard to get a hold of. My buddies and I would pool money to watch the PPV events at my house and always recorded them on VHS. Unfortunately, my mother saw an especially bloody ECW match, so we could only order WWE events. Luckily, I was always nice to the 2-eyed kids and they had all of the ECW shit. They would always loan me tapes to copy over the weekend, and on Monday we would be so excited to talk about them. This is the most 90s Midwestern thing I've ever read. Laughed my ass off. As a person from the Midwest who was in middle school in the 90s, that post didn't even seem that weird to me. I was just like, yep, this sounds like something my friends and I might have done. MP3s and CDRs were just becoming available. A guy I knew made a killing on mixed CDs. Every week he circulated forms to fill out, where you selected the songs you wanted on the CD. The newest hits were on the top, and changed weekly. The rest of his library filled the rest of the form. And there was a space for requests. He'd deliver your disc the following week. He seriously made bank for a couple years until everybody started getting their own songs from Lemuel or whatever. I don't know what he's doing now, 20 years later, but I don't doubt he's successful. Edit. Just as a bit of an aside, since a few responses have mentioned Lemuel, when this guy started doing it in HS, the only real avenues for music sharing were Usenet groups and Ike. I had 2 brothers in my school who did this in 7th and 8th grade. They were the only ones with a CD burner and they crushed it. $5 a pop. And a lot of times they'd just burn whatever rap was popular or shit they both liked. But at the time, I especially had no other access to that shit as we didn't have cable TV or high-speed internet, so it was a hot commodity. A few of us did this when I was in college. This was back when CD burners were still $500 plus, and CDRs were $5 plus. My dorm floor had a bunch of pirates on it. Actually, they probably had the majority of burners for the entire campus, and it was a fairly large school. They made an agreement to standardize prices so that no one would get ripped off, and everyone contributed money to bulk purchase blank CDs. That, and one person also would mod people's PSXs for $25. So, every week. And it was a rotating group of people. Some people in our dorm would pretty much buy every new game at TB and Babbage's. They'd burn a copy, and they'd just return all the games. This was back when they still allowed open package returns and never bothered collecting any data. You have the receipt? That's good enough. Wow, ripping music and hacking PSXs I can get behind. But you guys were fixing prices too. That's outrageous. This girl Danielle convinced my best friend and I, along with some other people, that she could forever change the taste of saliva in our mouth, so that our saliva would taste like watermelon, cotton candy, bubble gum, etc. forever. She made us wait a couple days so we could really think about what flavor we wanted in our mouth forever. For example, she would tell us, "Are you sure you always want everything you eat to have a hint of watermelon?" Anyways, after a couple days and we picked a flavor, she charged us money. I can't remember how much, but it was probably 50 cents or something. She made us chew on all this crazy stuff like paper clips, erasers, and other things. Obviously our saliva never changed flavor and she stopped this. But I worked at Starbucks a couple years ago in my hometown and she came in and didn't even recognize me. And all I could think about was how that girl had me chewing on paper clips. Was she head of her own religion by then? Maybe a bunker full of mole men. Day alive, damn it. Nintendo games. Some kid sold them off for like 10 or 15 bucks a pop. I don't know where he got them from, but he said he just told his dad what he wanted and his dad would get it for him. He'd ask for the same ones over and over and it didn't matter. He'd end up with 5 copies and he'd just sell 4 of them. Either the kid was the most spoiled brat in history, or his dad was straight up stealing them anyhow. Anyways, I could never get any. I had a Sega, but I remember that kid making a killing in grade 3. Updates and answers. It was NES. Yes. Please tell me how to download a car. I had the principal's secretary's handwriting down and used to sell hall passes for $1 each. Made a killing. Edit. I don't really know how much I made, but it was in the realm of $5 a day. Sometimes I went dry because you needed the actual pass paper, but I finally figured out how to get into the supply closet, slide the student in by the latch bolt. I only took a few pads at a time so they wouldn't get suspicious. Edit 2. I could also forge my mother's signature. Did it so well that when I brought in a note from her that she scribbled on the dash, they called her to confirm. I never grasped the concept of hall passes. Do you have hall wardens which detain you if caught without a pass? Freeze criminal scrum and show me your hall pass. They shoot on sight. Kinda. I've seen hall monitors on TV shows, but typically just that any teacher or administrator could stop you and check that you had a pass to make sure you weren't up to any unauthorized shenanigans. Cuban sandwiches straight out a duffel bag before school. They were bomb. Cheap and way better than the lunch in the cafeteria. Best sandwiches ever. I grew up in Tampa and I miss being able to go to Ybor City for a real one. The few places in California I have found that sell them all put mayo on them. Makes me so mad. So now I just make my own using a slow cooker to do the pork. Edit. Since so many people are asking for the recipe I use, here you go. I went to a private high school with a strict dress code, ties, belt, etc. So I bought a bunch of ties and belts from a thrift store and ran a lucrative rental business out of my locker. Rent a swag. r/unexpected porny. If you forgot your gym uniform more than once, you would get fined $5 to rent a uniform from the teacher or serve a detention. I would buy an extra set in the beginning of the school year of each size, and then rent them out, wash them myself, undercutting the teacher's fine at a cost of $3. Very lucrative over my middle and high school years. In high school, this guy sold socks in the hallways. I'd ask why there was a market, but I'm not sure I want to hear the answer. I went to school with a lot of emo kids and apparently, socks ruined the look of Converse and Vans. The gym teachers hated it, so if you weren't wearing socks, you couldn't participate and you got an F for the day. What if you wore ankle socks? Silly bands. I remember a kid made like $50 one day. This was late middle school for me. They were so highly coveted in our school that, if you had rare ones, you'd rather shoot yourself in the foot than give them away. I remember the fantasy pack was rare and came with bands shaped like a genie and unicorn and that shit. I only knew like 2 kids that had that pack and everyone was gagging to trade with them. Of course that didn't happen. So effectively, in the inner workings of my middle school, a caste system was created from ducking rubber bands. All silly bands are equal, but some are more equal than others. We had gel pens. Same shit. Different tiers and all that colon. Gel pens were huge when I was in 5th grade, 9900. Kids had even figured out that you could pull the tips off of them and mix 2 different gel colors together in the same pen. I never bought one, but few enough kids could do it without ruining both pens and they had quite the little market going. Apple laptops in middle school. Some had iTunes, some didn't, and the kids wanted it, so I apparently was the only one who knew how to transfer the installer with my USB. I put it on everyone's laptop for gifts, favors, etc. in return. Got caught by the sub that day. I told her it was my flash drive, I could do what I wanted with it, and that's how I got my second detention of my life. Edit. Gifts were typical middle schooler shit. Yu-Gi-Oh cards, fruit snacks, best food trades during lunch, gain in popularity and hang out with the cool people. Obviously they were taking advantage of me, but I didn't mind. How did you get the first? Gang violence. You don't wanna mess with the middle school mafia, bro. Apple laptops in middle school. Very few clauses have made me feel so old. We had Commodore 64s and a single VIC-20, and when I was in high school they thought they were big time since they had a number of computers running Windows 95. In grade school, you had 1 hour of computer time per week, and it was used as a glorified typing class. In high school, there was 1 semester course you could take called computer applications. More than anything, how to use Office and the internet for research. Apart from the 20 minutes before the morning bell rang where everyone crowded around the front of the school being an open-air drug market, there were always dice tournaments. The rules were 2 people put down X amount of money on a game. Then both people rolled 2 dice at the same time. Whoever got 7 or 11 first won the money. The winners of the first rounds would play each other for the amount of money they won in previous games. This went on until the bell rang, or it was broken up by teachers, school administrators. Things often continued in the afternoon after school let out, so many people got detention and suspended for repeat gambling. Looking back, it was hilariously stupid how much money was won and lost on a game of pure luck, and the sheer number of people who got in trouble for it. Yes, I was one of them. You guys were legit playing street craps in school, mayo. 7 or 11. Snake eyes watching you. This is called craps but like ghetto version. Banana chips were 25 cents in the vending machine in middle school. I always went to school early, so I always ended up buying all of them and selling them for 50 cents a bag. This is one of my favorites out of this whole thread. Simple and effective. This is the same business model as StubHub. Buy all the tickets at face value and resell for double the amount. 2 years ago I was a sophomore in high school, and freshmen weren't allowed to go off campus but everyone else was. So I'd take orders, go to the local fast food shops, and get the goods. I'd up the price by about $2 and ended up making about $200 a month. Edit. $200 a month, folks, not per year. But what about gas money? The stores were across the street, big city downtown high school. Used to crush up warheads and mix them with sugar. Sold them by the straw with the ends melted. 0.50 a piece. Hey kid, want some death sticks? You don't want to sell me a death stick. You want to go home and rethink your life. I used to sell Coke, the drink, because they didn't allow fizzy drinks to be brought in. Pablo Frescobar. I was in elementary school when pogs were big. Everyone had cool slammers and stuff, but I didn't have money for good ones. My dad made one out of 1/2 mild steel for me and used an engraving pen to make a simple pattern. Everyone was asking me where I got them from. I didn't want to lose my unfair edge, but I also knew I could make money. My dad had a big sheet of this 1/2 steel. I told them I was the only one who could get them. I sold them for $15 a pop. My dad kept 10, I got 5. And that's when I learned what overhead was. Edit. First silver. Neato. Thanks. Your family life sounds fun. Locker accessories such as carpets and magnets. Carpets? How big were your lockers? Only a few hundred square feet. The fireplace was really disappointing because it was only gas. I used to bang my head on the chandelier till I bought out my friend's locker above and built an extension. At my school they took all sweets out of the vending machines and replaced them with healthy snacks. In the local town there was a sweet shop where you could buy a kilo of mixed sweets for £5. So every week I would go there and buy 1 pound of small paper bags and spend the Sunday night before school repackaging them all ready for the week ahead. Come Monday I would go into school and load my bag up every day selling the bags for 50p. G-rated version of repacking and selling drugs. I lived in an area with a lot of retiree age people, a lot of which ended up raising their grandchildren. It really isn't a good area. Being older and from a rural area, they still don't trust online sites like eBay or Amazon, so I started ordering people things from those sites for actual money and added a charge for me to be making money off of it. It eventually got shut down because I got someone a USB in the shape of a pistol. It was the size of a USB and clearly a USB, but it didn't matter. The principal actually got the police involved to try to get me in real trouble. During a drug search at my school, a guy got in trouble simply for having a shirt in his truck with Sex Pistols on it. Zero tolerance is a freaking mess. I used to wear a NoFX Pump Up the Volume shirt to school. If you've never seen the album art, it's a zombie looking nurse popping pills. Holy shit, I went to Job Corps in Moses Lake, WA. Those ass clones took my shirt, as well as a Tiger Army shirt, and never returned it. Dark green. Bright yellow lettering. I fucking miss that shirt. It's not anything bad, but we had a black market for food and another for birth control pills. Hey, Martha, didn't see you last week. You want your usual order of birth control pills? No, just the food, please. Do you need double the usual amount? This is why we need real sex ed. I have family in NY and would go visit a couple times a year back in high school. Every once in a while we'd visit Chinatown in NYC and I'd end up buying $100 worth of fake watches, Rolex, Tag, Gucci, etc. Return to school and sell them for double than what I paid for them. A lot of people still do this. They fly off to China, buy cheap knockoffs and sell them for a huge markup wherever they're from. It's big business here in the Philippines. Cinnamon toothpicks were all the rage in grammar school. Same at mine. We had a guy who was selling them for 25 cents a pop until the teachers finally shut down his business. I've never heard of cinnamon toothpicks before. What was their appeal? Did people suck on them? Discreet, sweet, doesn't look like candy. Toothpicks are not worthy of confiscating, usually. The location of forest porn. A buddy of mine found his mom's dildo when we were 11 years old and he charged people to come and see it. Made a small fortune during that week it lasted. Step right up. Step right up. See the 8th wonder of the world. Folks, right here. Just 25 cents a ticket. A hidden treasure from the farthest orient. Crafted by 1,000 Chinese laborers using only the finest grade India rubber. Enchanted by secret Confucian magic to move of its own volition. It buzzes continuously with energy said to be drawn from the dome of heaven. Its undulating motions, at once repulsive and transfixing, are likened to the hypnotic sway of a king cobra. I present to you, even now still sticky with the fragrant dew of a foreign clime, the disembodied phallus of Beijing. Did his mom ever find out? Marbles were big at my primary school. Real big. It got to the stage where they were only allowed for 3 months a year as we would no longer discuss anything but the game we had the make we wanted to pay for. That was marble season. Now you could buy a big bag of cat's eyes from the supermarket but they wouldn't get you far. to play the high stakes games, you needed a spect egg, a glitter bomb, a tidal wave or something exotic, but those suckers were pricey. Us poor kids couldn't afford those things, so we secretly gambled our marbles through the year, so when marble season opened, we had amassed enough marbles to really be ahead of the game. Being caught with marbles outside of marble season was bad. Real bad. One kid got 5 strokes of the cane. This being so, it was a big risk to hide in the shadows of the trees and sling those little glass balls about. Not only did it hone your skills for the season start, but you got good at taking the shot and then acting nonchalant. Marbles were currency. You could trade lunches with them or buy time on playground equipment. There was a good reason they banned marbles at my school. We turned it into some sort of mafia shit. Marbles trigger my sex addiction. Like if I open a door to a room full of marbles, it's amazing, but it's very rare. Oh boy, wait till you hear about anal beads. I thought this is how you're supposed to play with marbles. 5 strokes of the cane? Holy crap. When and where were you at elementary, and why nobody points this out? My school used the metallic ends of pencils as a currency. Bronze was rarest, so it was the most expensive. Green was most common, so it was the least. We traded for erasers or pencil cases or a spot up in the 4-square line. Eventually got banned, but we still operated with people acting as banks to keep the currency hidden and to keep transactions hidden. It's actually pretty impressive to trade and maintain value of a fiat currency like that. Yeah, and the emergence of banks is super impressive. I wonder where the bank managers are these days. I ran it for a few spare years in elementary. Books got banned in the classroom. Not blacklisted books, but literally books in general. They were far too distracting. Even though most kids read when done with work, etc. I started smuggling books to school and peddling them out to kids. It started out innocently. I had loads of Hank the Cowdog books that I was super into, and I hid them in my desk, and I loaned them to close friends when asked. But soon, the entire class knew, and that spread to the school. I became a full-time book smuggler. I had a system where there was a 2-week borrowing limit, kept a log of who, what book, when, ran a teensy little library for myself, basically, and I made sure these kids were treating the books fairly. If anything came back damaged, they were banned from borrowing. Kept this up until middle school, which was considerably less totalitarian. Edits. Spelling. Sorry. Mobile. Edit 2. Thank you for the silver and gold. Holy crow. I'm about to hop off, but I'm glad some people got a genuine smile out of this. This is the best one I have seen so far. What sort of horrible school bans books? My classroom had a mini library in the back, for when you were done with your assignments. Ducking like and subscribe.